The wind carried ash like snow. It sifted through the broken rafters of a ruined chapel, whispering through old bones and forgotten prayers. Caelan Vire stood motionless in the doorway, watching the flakes settle across the cracked stone altar. They clung to his cloak and beard, soft as moth wings, but cold with the memory of fire. He didn't remember the name of this chapel. Perhaps it had never had one. Most places near the edge of Narith, Varn had been left unnamed after the dungeons rose. Safer that way. Names gave things weight. Names made them harder to leave behind. Caelan's hand drifted to his chest, fingers brushing over the layered wool of his robe until they found the mark. The glyph burned faintly beneath his skin. Not hot, never hot, but aware, like something buried deep, scratching upward. He pulled his cloak tighter. The pages in his satchel rustled like dry leaves. Scripture fragments, mostly. Banned texts. Old crawl records. He'd recopied them by hand over the last 6 years, holed up in a hovel just beyond the Reach's last milestone. He hadn't planned to use them, only preserve them. Like fossils, like warnings. But then the monk had arrived. Caelan could still see the blood trailing behind the man's bare feet, black in the moonlight. His robes had been shredded, tongue cut out. But he'd clutched the fragment like it was scripture, pressed it into Caelan's hands, and forced a wheezing word through his throat. It remembers you. Then he'd collapsed, died before sunrise. No name, no explanation, just that phrase. Caelan hadn't slept since. Now he stood in the ruin, staring at the black ink on yellowed parchment. The glyphs twisted and coiled, not random, not sacred, but familiar. They pulled something loose in him, something coiled tightly around his spine all these years. It remembers you. Behind him, the wind howled again. He turned. Across the ash plains, the great teeth of the Ebon Labyrinth jutted from the earth like a broken jaw. Half-buried towers, cracked statues, impossible arches. The main gate pulsed with a soft glow, just barely visible in the lightless dusk. He'd avoided that place all his life. Even as an archivist, he'd studied it from afar, content to catalog its symptoms without approaching the disease. Now it called to him, not with promises, not with fear, but with memory. He walked back to his hut and began to pack. His hands moved automatically, scripture blade, graven shroud, the last 2 vials of whisper oil. The satchel went over his shoulder, and then the parchment, the monk's gift, was tucked against his chest. He paused at the door. On the table beside him sat a piece of quartz etched with his sister's name. The last thing he'd saved before he left the temple. She'd died in one of the early pilgrimages, swallowed by the dungeon's 3rd floor. They'd never found her body. He reached out to touch it, then stopped. A warmth bloomed beneath his ribs. The mark. It remembered her, too. He left the quartz behind. Outside, the sky had turned the color of bruised slate. The wind had stilled. In the distance, the labyrinth pulsed again, just once, like the blink of a great stone eye. Caelan didn't look back as he walked. The path was long, and the silence longer. Once, a pack of root crows passed overhead, dragging something behind them, a jawbone maybe, or a child's rib cage. He didn't flinch. The Reach had taught him when to look away. By the time he saw the first torchlight of the outer ring, His legs ached, and the ash had turned to mud beneath his boots. The campfires were few, mostly loners, mercenaries, broken men and women staring at the gates like they might confess something if asked hard it long enough. He found an empty ring and sat. No one approached him. The mark saw to that. When he woke the next morning, someone had placed a candle beside him. Unscented. Plain wax. No wick, no wick. A crawler's gift. A prayer for survival. Caelan tucked it into his cloak without a word. The gate opened at dusk. No guards. No creak of hinges. Just a soft hum and the low grind of stone against stone. The eye above the arch flickered open. A slit of pale green light, and a gust of air rolled outward, thick with rot and heat. Caelan stepped forward. He had no map. No team. Not yet, not yet. But the labyrinth remembered him, and he had come to remember it.